Hey guys, I'm here with the amazing Tom Cronin, and Tom's a meditation teacher, he's a mentor, a speaker, an author, a film producer, and when he's not reading, researching, speaking, travelling around the globe, he's with his family here in sunny Sydney, or he might be found on his longboard surfing, or maybe doing twisted, contorted moves on his yoga mat, or where we met some 7 or 8 years ago in some dance floor at a music festival. So do you remember 2011 David Wolf?
Yeah, that's right.
That's where we met.
Yeah.
And it's been a while since I've seen Tom. I've been trolling my Instagram feed, and Tom comes up, you know, every so often with these amazing coastal shots where he does his meditations. And I thought, I'm going to find out where one of these secret locations is. So this is like probably the most eastern northern tip of the eastern suburbs. I don't know if Tom wants to divulge the place, the location, but this is one of his amazing locations. So Tom, how are you?
I'm great, yeah. Great to be
while.
here, yeah. Great to meet you again after all this time.
Yeah, you've been up to so much.
Yeah.
I think the last time we caught up, you were doing a teaser for the Stillness Project. He's the founder of the Stillness Project, so we're going to ask him a little bit about that.
Well, I left finance after 26 years of working as a broker, and I had such a transformational experience through meditation that I really was just dumbfounded when I had such a transformation through meditation that more people weren't doing it. I just couldn't understand how much of a shift I went through this very simple technique that's been around for thousands of years, and yet what I saw was very few people actually practicing it. So I was very inspired to want to share that with the world, and so I worked with some people to collaborate and create a brand and a movement called the Stillness Project, which was really about, at the time, 5 years ago, it was about inspiring 1 billion people to meditate daily. And we really wanted to bring meditation out into the world and inspire people through everything that we did, through retreats, our talks, our books, weekend workshops, to really just inspire them to bring more stillness into their life. Because we could see even 5 years ago how this lack of stillness, this lack of time out was starting to have such a big impact. And that was what happened to me, really, just having so much stimulation in my life caused these imbalances, and how little people were having in their life, and it's increased even more so.
Yeah, because Tom used to work on the trading floor. He was a stockbroker, and I had a little bit of experience. I used to work at Macquarie Bank, and I remember the right next door to the room. It's hectic, crazy, frenetic, and you experience anxiety and panic attacks, and that, and I guess I don't know. Some people call that dark night of the soul, but you really reached out and found that meditation started to alleviate.
Yeah, it was a big shift. I mean, I'd been in finance at that point in time for about 10 years, and there was this culminative effect of the stress response in my body from the work environment that I was in, but also a lot of the lifestyle choices, a lot of drugs, a lot of drinking, a lot of late nights, a lot of partying. I was really caught up in the rave culture back in the 80s and 90s. So weekends when I was recuperating, or supposed to be recuperating from that 5-day intensive period as a broker, I was in warehouse parties in, you know, sort of industrial areas of Sydney, you know, taking lots of drugs and not having any sleep on the weekend. So this culminating effect of the stress response in the body eventually led to ultimately a nervous breakdown where my nervous system was incapacitated. It struggled too much with daily demands. So it was extreme anxiety and panic attacks and depression. So, you know, it was really one of two choices. I was at a fork in the road where I go down this Western medicine model of psychiatry and pharmaceutical drugs, which is what I was prescribed, or I look for another alternative, and that's when I found meditation, and it was just amazing. I mean, it really was. It's such a simply amazing process of how much it changed me.
Wow. I mean, there are so many benefits that you hear of meditation, and I suppose I grew up in a Buddhist household, and so Buddhist meditation was always, you know, something that was always there. It was the staple of daily living, and my parents do it, you know, they do the prayer and the meditation every night, but funnily enough I never kind of got into it for some strange reason, and I've heard all about it, but I didn't I didn't research, or I wasn't informed about maybe perhaps the science behind it or the actual real benefits. I thought, oh, you know, you go into this still point, you know, people talk about the nectar, the bliss, the sweet spot, you know, the Buddhists would talk about just dropping everything and just not being attached and letting it all go. And I thought, my mind is such a monkey mind, it's so frenetic that, God, I've got no hope. Like, you know, I didn't realise that that's actually a good thing. Like, the things that arise, the things that come up during meditation are a part of the process. Is that what?
Yeah, I think it's a misconception that people have that they're going to have a meditation experience that's all completely zen and it's silence and still. And they're really just brief glimpses that we get during the meditation experience. I mean, if we're in a monastery and we started meditating at the age of 8 and we had no stresses in our system and we'd been doing these practices for 30, 40 years of our life, then we'd stay in this deep Zen experience for quite sustained periods of time. But, you know, for us, walking at 29, 30, 50, whatever age we start at, you know, we've got a lot of stresses in our body, and as we de-excite the mind and de-excite the nervous system, we start to unravel those stresses and they start to unfold and undo themselves, and this creates some level of activity in the body, and that inspires some level of activity in the mind. So having a busy meditation can actually signify that you're actually getting some stress releasing going on, and there's a process of healing and reorganization that's occurring.
Right, okay. And so what are some of the dangers or the dark side? You know, you hear about people talking about anyone with maybe a certain psychosomatic symptom, psychosocial disorder, where it does trigger post-traumatic stress, or it does, you know, bring up really traumatic, repressed, you know, childhood wounds and things like that. You know, everyone talks about the great side, the benefits, but then there's also that element where people go in so deep, and then maybe they don't have a teacher or a therapist or someone to hold the space for them when they come out, when things do come up. I mean, do you find that, you know, your students or people that you've taught have had severe or strange side effects from
look,
that?
It's a really good point, Winnie, that you're bringing up, because you're right, we don't really talk about it much. You know, it's something that is kind of just swept under the carpet. And you know, Adyashanti, who's a great Buddhist monk that I follow, and he does some great work, and he says enlightenment is a very destructive process, because we're destroying all those layers of perceived reality, which is this false illusion of who we are and who we've become. And we've got so many different layers or vasanas that we have accumulated, and these tendencies, and some of them are deep emotional stresses that are become buried. And when we say emotional stresses, what we're talking about is energy points. So meditation doesn't create post-traumatic stress syndrome. That's something we have as a result of a previous challenging experience. But what meditation can do in that healing process of eradicating and purifying is it can, as those stresses unravel, the energy that's buried within can actually start to come up to the surface. And you know, we have on our retreats where we take people very deep, they're very intense processes, and you know, we really let people know they're not for the faint-hearted. They're you know, they're not a walk in the park. So you know, most of the people on our retreat will have an emotional experience, but what's really important is we let people know that an emotional release or an emotional experience can be one of two things. It can be something that is a response to a current situation where you have something happen that makes you sad or happy or angry or shamed, whatever it is. You're having a reaction. Or it can be something where you're in this beautiful jungle in Bali with these amazing people, and you're saying a mantra or doing some yoga, and now in this circumstance you're having an upheaval of emotion. Now we can deduce that that emotion is not going in. It's not a response to a situation that's in this current environment. So therefore that emotion is an energy that's buried within the body that is looking to have a release. And when that release comes and we allow them in a very safe space to have that at that release, then we don't need to have to prolong the experience and continue to delve into it and prod and poke around in there. We just allow them to cathartically allow that energy to come out, get it out of the system like a pussy boil, and then it's done.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great analogy. That I was just going to say, it's that pussy boil. It's got to come to the surface,
Yeah,
you know, because
yeah.
otherwise, you know, the laceration, the wound is just going to keep festering.
Yeah, absolutely.
So at some point, you know, even though people say don't pop that zit, when the zit gets popped, it does start.
The toxins come out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Run me through the difference with transcendental meditation and Vedic meditation. Is transcendental meditation a form of Vedic meditation? What's the?
It's a great question. So Vedic is a very ancient body of knowledge, the Vedas, and the Vedas incorporate basically a body of knowledge that's delivered through things like architecture and food and body types and philosophy and spiritual practices as well. And transcendental meditation is really an expression of that. It's one of the practices of the Vedas, which is a particular style of meditating using mantras.
Right.
So what happened was the Vedic meditation and transcendental meditation are ultimately really almost brands of the same thing.
Okay.
They really are the same technique. They have a different name to them, but ultimately I think they're the same practice.
Yeah, because you hear how Hollywood and all these celebrities have just jumped onto the transcendental meditation bandwagon, and I used to think, what is all that about? You know, you've got the Hugh Jackmans and the David Lynch's, and I think I was watching Russell Brand talk about his experience of this oneness and how he was just not attached to his ego anymore, the personality called Russell Brand. But at the flip side, I've also heard that disassociation and non-identification can also be, you know, tricky territory when you sort of, and it's a fine balance, isn't it? Just sort of move between.
This is the conundrum with the path to enlightenment.
Yeah.
It's ultimately the big question is, who are you? And there is like a Velcro ripping of this, these two worlds of higher self and lower self. Higher self with a capital S, which is the permanent, unbounded, formless experience of you, which is universality you.
Yeah.
And then there's the lower self, egoic identity that's been programmed and conditioned, that is very much influenced in the duality of the world, which is me and other. And when we transcend, we free ourselves of the small self and we experience that unboundedness of higher self. So absolutely in that transcendent experience, there's a separation and a dissolving of the lower self egoic state or identity.
Right.
Of course, when we come out of transcendence, we come back to the experience of the egoic state, and so there's this starts to become an association of these two identities. One is there's higher self, wow, I get an experience of it, and then there's also the very current experience of the lower self, the identity. And over time, the work is, whether it's Buddhist meditation, Zen meditation, Vipassana, transcendental meditation, is to eventually surrender the association and identification with the lower self. And
I guess it's that
a challenging process.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Sort of like being aware of the macro, still being in the micro, being in and of. Well, it's interesting that you mentioned Vipassana, because I did that many years ago, and this is just my experience. But not having done regular meditation, I went straight in to this 10-day retreat. Now, I didn't seem to have any major issues, the usual monkey mind, you know, you're meditating, you're waking up at 4, you're meditating and for hours on end, and you're not eating dinner, you just have your breakfast and a small piece of fruit for lunch. But I was meditating so much that I wasn't sleeping at night during that whole time. And by day 8, I literally said, okay, I'm out of here. It wasn't because I had any reaction. There was no major trigger or catalyst or anything like that. It wasn't. I just felt that I don't till this day. I'm not quite sure, but I was shamed for that royally. And they said, why do you want to leave? And I said, I just feel like, I would have still given the donations, but I was told that because I wasn't sleeping, that I might have a psychosis or a nervous breakdown or be mentally unstable. So yes, I should go. So I don't know, I've heard some amazing, beautiful Vipassana meditation experiences, but yeah, and I know they tell you to stick it out for 10 days, but I think I got to a point where I went, oh, I can do this, and this is great, and but I was watching people leave throughout the 10 days, and for various reasons, you know, some people just don't stay with it, for whatever reason, and I knew I could stay with it, and I knew that there was a choice and an option, but I wasn't sleeping because I was. Tell me about the metabolic rest and the pleasure hormones, because I thought because I had possibly rested so much during the sessions and I wasn't sleeping at night that I felt like I needed to get back out and have like a scone and a tea, like literally that's what I wanted. Was I resting so much that, I don't know, what are your thoughts on?
Because I'm not a practitioner in the practice of Vipassana, it's very difficult for me to comment on a student's experiences from it, and I would really leave that to a qualified person in that space. You know, I could assume a number of things, but it would really just be an assumption because I'm not experienced in that field, and I don't really want to step over the line of making an opinion on something that I'm not accredited in or qualified in. I really think it's such, and just while I'm on that space, I really think it's important that we respect and acknowledge the process of qualification and accreditation in any form of yogic or meditation practice, because a lot of people out there just winging it at the moment, and you know you're dealing with your own consciousness, you're dealing with your mind, you're dealing with deep emotional and psychological issues. So I've always, you know, recommended seeking out qualified people to support you in this journey, like you said, because stuff can come up, and you really do need people that know what they're doing, that have got years of practice and experience in this. It's amazing to me how quickly teachers are getting rolled off the factory line, you know, and you know, maybe it's just the need of the time, and maybe it's all good, but it could also have potential issues. I mean, all teachers are still students. I'm going to be a student all my life, and I'm always learning and always improving and refining my craft, so it's never a day that I'm not in the process of being a student. But I think it's a very precarious time for students, and so giving them some support and helping them through those challenging times. Why you might not be sleeping is that there's a lot of stuff going on in the body when we're going through a retreat and unstressing, and that can stimulate a lot of activity in the body on an energetic level. You know, I recommend taking melatonin and magnesium for some students that might have a lot of stimulation going on, because rest is still really important through the night.
I mean, my body, I remember lying in bed and resting, but I just wasn't going into sleep, like, but I wasn't tired at the same time, because I was already resting and meditating during the day. So it was quite strange, but not being able to sustain that practice, going out and leaving that. And like you say, I didn't actually seek out a meditation teacher, because I always thought, just sit cross-legged and close your eyes and meditate. How hard can it be? But I have read so much since then, and since following you, that it is so crucial to have someone guide you, because of there's so many things that do come up, and I think that if you are going through, you know, PTSD or have some anxiety or clinical depression or anything, and you're on sort of meditation, and you do begin meditation, that you do have some support and guidance. I think it's so critical, and that's a lot of times people are winging it, like you say. And I do think that meditation would be something that would be dangerous, but I've heard so many stories of people having Kundalini awakenings and risings, and they're not sure what's going on. Are you more from a physiological perspective, where you accentuate or highlight the metabolic rate of meditation, as opposed to taking a micro nap? Or
I mean, I teach on many levels, and I always start at ground zero, which is physiological. You know, I've had some students come to me with the most appalling diets, terrible lifestyle patterns, and you know, asking if I can teach them astral planing. I'm like, let's just get your body started. Let's get ground zero settled and established first, and we'll build on that over time. But I do generally teach a lot around the physiology and the importance of how meditation enhances the physiology from your physiological, you know, breath and pulse and heart rate and blood sugar levels and so many different things, to your biochemistry and, you know, your melatonin levels, your oxytocin, your serotonin levels versus your cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine. So very much letting them understand the change in the physiology, and from there we build on that, you know, and we move into more advanced states like the mind and spirituality after that.
Right. And it's not really something that you can skip, really, is it? Like, you really can't go from ground zero to, like, say, stage 4 advanced realization without walking that trajectory through all the steps to some degree, because you're layering the foundation.
Yeah, I think it depends if you want to live in this world. Now for me, I love places like this, swimming and family and, you know, this puppy dog that we just got the other day, and, you know, just so many beautiful things in the earthly plane. Some people don't want to experience this, you know, they want to float away in the cosmos, and it was like this woman, you know, there was such a lack of respect for the field of manifestation, the world of form. And the beauty with why I like Vedic meditation or Vedic philosophy is that it totally respects this duality. We call it Brahman, the totality, which is that there is form. This is not fake, it's not unreal, it's not an illusion, it's actually a beautiful rock. It's a manifestation of the divine. And this beautiful person here is real too, and she's a beautiful manifestation of the divine. So we don't...
Even though we have molecules and atoms and energy spinning at, so the rate is so fast.
Sure. You know, there's the Brahman totality is that there's manifest and unmanifest. There's also a formlessness to Veena as well, which is the divine essence of her beyond the physical structure. So it's about recognition of those two worlds, and I think that comes to our own experience as well, that I'm going to have a deep respect for my physical form. You know, I love my body, and I love the gift that this body is giving me to be able to eat food and, you know, and have intimacy and, you know, drink water and swim in the ocean. So many gifts.
Yeah, I mean, it is hard for those aspirants or spiritual seekers on the path that they kind of want to check out of here, and maybe they think they've been here so many times and so many lifetimes and they've done it all and they're like ready to, but we are here and we're here for a reason, you know, and sometimes it's figuring what that reason is, and I think it might be a lifetime process figuring it out, or it might change. Is meditation addictive is what I want to know, because people talk about that sweet spot, that nectar, that juju point, when they get and they want to continually get to that place that they've gotten to before. Can it be too much of a good thing? Can you meditate too much?
Well, everyone on the planet, you included, is doing right now the same thing. We're all doing the same thing. Every action is motivated in that quest to be fulfilled. And whether it's cleaning the bathroom floor or doing your grocery shopping or turning up for work or making love or swimming off the ocean, it's all in that quest to seek fulfillment. And we're just using different vehicles, different modalities. We're all researching where we can find fulfillment. And you know, for me, I look for it in cocaine and ecstasy. I look for it in lots of money. I look for it in, you know, lots of sex. But, you know, what I found when I got fulfillment in those places, and there's no question I did get fulfillment in those places, you can get it racking up your credit card at Zara and, you know, H&M or you know, Dolce Gabbana's, but it goes very quickly as well. And so you have to have another hit and another hit and another hit. And what I found with meditation was that it was a self-referred fulfillment. It was one that wasn't dependent upon an acquisition or an experience. And so
that's a good point.
It's not that it's addictive, it's just that it's replacing another search somewhere else. That's all. It's just replacing another search somewhere else, because it's still the search for fulfillment, and we're just finding something that's possibly a little bit more sustainable.
Did you find that for some people though, because they're able to get that it becomes a cure-all, or I think I had the magic bullet, like it's this magic bullet that doesn't necessarily solve everything, but it puts you into a path that begins that journey towards healing and wholeness. And I don't know, I mean, life is a double-edged sword. I guess you've got the good and the bad and the positive and the negative and everything, but I'm very holistic, so when I research something I want to know the benefits, the pluses, but also the minuses,
Sure.
so I can be aware if something was to happen where I just went, oh, you know what, I don't want to deal with that relationship, I'm not going to deal with that, I'm just going to meditate.
Yeah, we don't want to. Yeah, look, we don't want to check out, and the challenge with all meditators are going to face, even an enlightened person who's used meditation to reach a level of awareness, a self-realization, they still face the polarities of life. You still have relationship challenges, you still have challenges with finances, you still have challenges with family, you still have challenges with the temporary nature of life, and integrating what you found in your own personal experience is challenging to integrate that into a world where not everyone is having that same experience.
Yeah.
And this is always the conundrum, and you can never be removed from it as a meditator. You know, I have as many challenges today as I had 25 years ago before meditating. It's like the analogy I give my students is that when you're in first class, they had to measure your learning capability by testing you.
Yeah.
And the test that they gave you in first class when you were 6 years old is relatively as hard as the same test you had in fourth year uni doing quantum physics, because the relativity nature has to still test you the same capability. So an SAS Marine soldier who's been, you know, in his training program has to be tested before he's ready to be qualified, and that's brutally challenging, but he's going to get a challenge that has to be capable of testing him.
Yeah.
And this is what it is on the spiritual path or any other path. We're always getting tested.
Yeah.
And the tests never go away.
And it does feel like, I mean, I know there'll be some people that don't believe in these spiritual tests, but I feel like the more honed you become, the more skills you require, you know, practice, I feel like the harder or the sneakier the test.
Yeah, for sure. Totally.
You know?
Yeah.
And I find that on the
because you're more qualified though.
Right?
Yeah.
And you think, the minute you think you've got it,
no.
No.
Something will come along and slap you in the face.
Exactly, right? It's like the waves, it's the I don't know, 40-foot tsunami waves that you get. Which is interesting because the journey that a lot of people have been on in the last few years has been pretty much like choppy, spiritual, choppy
pretty
waves.
intense.
It's pretty intense, and I think people are just like looking for different, you know, means and methods for dealing with that. And I mean, like I was speaking to Tom earlier about watching the different types of people that I choose to interview on this channel, and just watching their progression and their growth over the years, and you know, watching whether at the height of their fame or celebrity status or Instagram or YouTube or Facebook rise is where their ego is. And I'm not dissing the ego. I think the ego is great when it comes to personality and defining who you are and all those things that make us who we are. But then there's also the dark side and the negative side. And can the guru status, that I think is probably one of the most charming, ultimate traps that people that get to that certain level face. And that's probably why I've sort of stayed back and not decided to do this for so long, because I was adamant that I wasn't going to be one of those people. And so it's taken a while to really put yourself out there. I mean, what are your thoughts on finding your passion, your mission, your purpose, putting it out there, but staying humble and having that humility and that grace to manage those energies, you know, those conflicting dynamics?
I think it's a challenge for all of us, you know, unless we're completely self-realized and there is complete absence of the egoic nature, we're still going to get caught up in the enjoyment of being liked.
Yeah, how many likes will be?
Yeah, I'm sure even the Dalai Lama checks his Instagram account, I reckon. Who knows? But it's definitely a challenge that, you know, I'll speak for us all collectively, that we all face. I think, you know, certainly I do. And you're right, it's about constantly trying to be humble and remain in that chair as a teacher and a support and a mentor and a guide, but also as a student as well, and open to always learning and being humble and accepting your mistakes. I mean, I've made a ton of mistakes and still screw up, and nature just slaps me every time very quickly.
It is quick these days.
Very quick, yeah.
Yeah, the manifestation seems to be quick. The lessons that we're learning, they just, it's like this revolving door.
Yeah.
It's like in, out, and you don't get to catch your breath quite often. But yeah, tell me what it's like. You've been speaking on many different stages and platforms and organisations. I guess, I think I heard you in an interview speak once about, you know, you're talking to a corporate organisation that maybe they're doing some sort of training, and half of them want to be there and half of them are sort of going, you know, when's lunch, when do I go and play golf? You know, how do you manage that? Are you looking at the crowd, the audience, and you're going with the flow of the people that want to be there, or trying to capture the interest of those at the same time?
Yeah, it's very challenging in a corporate environment when the company said, you know, 200 people have to sit in front of this person, because generally you can say enough to inspire a lot of those people to want to be engaged, you know, through my story and information that's going to be relevant to improve their life. But you're always going to get some people in the audience that just don't resonate with your story, they don't resonate with the message, and they've got no interest in hearing you speak. And that's fine, you know, you've got to respect those people, and I was one of those people for a long time, so I have complete understanding for their position. You know, I had people for many years tell me that I should meditate, but I'd much prefer doing lines of cocaine, so it was like no interest, you know, get out of here, you know. So it was just about being true to where you're at and respecting someone else's position.
Yeah, I mean, I caught up with my former psychology professor after 10, 12, 13 years, and he was telling me to meditate, and I'm like, yeah, that's me and meditation don't gel. Like, I'd prefer to do dancing meditation or something with music or movement, but I realised that they are different, and I had a whole different reorientation and perception of what I thought meditation was supposed to be, or how it was supposed to help me, and I didn't think it was me, because my mind is just like this, busy. But
you need to come and see me for a meditation class after all these years.
After all these years, he's been saying, I've got a meditation class this Monday, Vina. Got one this week. I'm like, I'm coming. Well, no, we actually did the one in Bali. Amazingly, I dropped into this, I don't know, was it half an hour, I'm not quite sure, but we were in this amazing location, and I hadn't meditated before, but I went straight in with Tom, and it was just, it was pure bliss. Like, I was a completely different person after. I still remember that day. I came out and it was, I don't know where I went somewhere deep. Like,
you experienced you without your form.
Yeah. And I thought, oh, imagine doing that every day. And I think I gave up on myself. Like, I think that's what happened. I thought, wow, that was good.
I wouldn't say you gave up on yourself. You didn't let go of yourself.
Oh.
You're attached to yourself. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Because the biggest challenge why people tend to not go into that space is because of the fear of letting go, of the association with ego.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think the strange journey about that is I took myself off Facebook for a whole year. I've only just gone back on this month. But for a whole year I didn't want that association. I didn't want to have to be, you know, addicted to the likes and the connections and all this other stuff. And I thought, you know, if you can do that for a year, then just prove it. It was to prove a point to myself that I didn't need that, because I didn't have that 20 years ago. And can I get back to a place where I don't need that stimuli, that constant stimuli that's really affecting everything? And some people do it really well, that they manage their social media or their Instagram. You've got, like you said, you don't do anything after 10 o'clock, or you only check at a certain time. And I don't think that's the case with the majority of the people on social media. I think we've become this zombie nation of
I think it's all comes down to your own personal relationship with it. And you could tweak your perspective on it slightly, because at the moment it's still revolving around you, which is the egoic identity. But what it could be is, I see that this is a powerful medium.
Yes.
It's one of the greatest mediums that's been cognized, that enables actually a massive shift that we're going through, a massive rebirthing. And it might be to our detriment that we have this technology, or it might be the greatest asset that we have.
It's how we use the tool.
To how we use the tool. And for me, there's nothing greater than my ability now to be able to support someone in Venezuela and Finland and Mexico and the housing estates of Sheffield, England. Because they did see my social media. You know, I had 3 women turn up to my retreat in Hawaii. I was 65 years old, from Colombia in South America. And I asked them, how did you even know about this retreat? Like, where did you come from? And they said, we heard one of your meditations on an app, and I'd done this free meditation on Mind Valley's app for Omvana, and they'd listened to it and they liked it, and they looked me up on my website, and they could do all of this from the comfort of their place in Colombia. And next thing, they're on my retreat in Hawaii. So it's not that it's this big, evil, horrible thing. It's actually one of the greatest assets we have for mankind. It's just a matter of how we use it. Yeah, because I mean, you are quite conscious about how you utilise that tool, and a lot of people are. You can see that, and then I guess there are a lot of people that aren't. But having said that, now I mean, Tom hopefully won't mind me saying this, but you know, he's a family man. So just for all the ladies out there, but do you find that a lot of your participants also see, wow, Tom's quite a good looking bloke here, and I mean, this is something that I notice working with a lot of different people, that people see you when they become magnetized or drawn or attracted to your vibe outside of what you're saying, and it can put you into this elevated guru spot. And I know some people have decided, oh geez, I don't want to trade on my charm or my looks or my charisma or my... Is that something that you've had to deal with? That are you aware of it? Is that something that just you don't even notice at all? Very aware of it. It's always been a challenge. Without doubt. It's always been the greatest challenge. I don't think there's a person in this community that doesn't grapple with these responsibilities and these challenges, and I've failed many times, and it's a learning process, you know. Particularly my expression is very tactile, you know. It's a very tactile way of communicating. You know, for me, that's a wonderful way of communicating, you know. And so it's definitely a challenge, and it's definitely something that you constantly trying to navigate, and you're learning along the way. Because that's one of the other reasons why Tom's asked me why I haven't done this before and why I'm not putting myself out there, and I'm worried about that, because I've seen it with so many of my other friends and acquaintances and colleagues, and it's kind of like, oh, that's a no-go zone for me, and it's a part of getting myself out there, because for me, I think there's this dance that we do between creative expression, consciously creative expressing yourself, and blatant exhibitionism, and really the devil's advocate sort of trading on that. And I think it's just my analytical mind, but I watch people dance along that spectrum, and I find myself, you know, oscillating along that spectrum myself, and where do I sort of want to be. And that's actually what's prevented me from doing this for so long, is that I don't want to be associated to that side, and heaven forbid if I go there. But then at the same time, like you said, I had some people come up to me, well, if you didn't speak at the Mind Body Spirit Fest, I wouldn't know about your shadow work. And you know, so I guess it's something that we all are learning, and you know, weaving and navigating our way through. I think the way through that, just to touch on that, is because I grapple with that as well, so I empathise with you on that. And what I keep coming back to is trying to put myself in the life of that person that's suffering out there, and what is the price that is paid if I don't do my work? Bingo. Who's exactly? And I had to get to that point as well, and get out of my own way, and then build the self-esteem back up. Now, Tom, you not only are you a meditation teacher and a speaker and author, but he's also a little bit of a philanthropist on the side, and he's done a couple of videos. You've got to check him out on YouTube. I'll put links at the bottom. But he did do this gorgeous little thing where you said at one point in your life you were questioning, well, how can I put myself out there? How can I contribute and help? And he would buy little plants or trees and just plant them all around the local area. I mean, that's such a sweet thing to have. And how did you move from that? And then he was working in a soup kitchen every Saturday for a whole year, on top of doing 9 to 5 trade. I mean,
it's those little things like that. And I thought I did a good deed many years ago on Christmas Day when I went down Central Park and was getting food out to the homeless. But he did it every Saturday for over years. So hands down to Tom.
No, it's nothing.
So how did that, did that sort of develop into finding your passion and purpose to some degree as well, is putting the energy out?
I think what happens is we go from a state of neediness, which is the stress state. You know, we need more, we need more addiction, more fulfillment, and we try and crave it from outside. And then when we go through our dark night and we discover that, oh my goodness, I've got all of what I was looking for within, there's an abundance that is you know, an endless supply of love and light. And as we start to tap into that, we find we have excess, we have this overflow. And as this overflow starts to bubble up from within us, we're like, my God, I want to give, I want to share, I want to serve, I want to give something back. And we all have our own capacity and what level we're going to do that. And you know, for me, it was just this tiny little capacity. I had a tiny little bit of excess, which meant, you know, going around and planting trees. I didn't have a lot of excess. I just had a little bit of excess. And you know, those trees are all now these gorgeous, massive gum trees around Bondi, and I love seeing them now. And we're just doing another rung of planting at the moment. But then I had more to give, so then it was like a soup kitchen on Saturday morning, and then I had more to give, so it was about teaching. And then you just find that your capacity to serve and your capacity to share and the mediums that you find to do that through starts to grow as well. So there's one thing having more to give, but what mediums are you going to use to give it? So now we're looking at feature films and books and things like that.
And speaking of feature films, I think Tom's given me the okay and heads up to briefly give you a little teaser about this. He's just secured a
book deal,
and also he's in the final stages of wrapping up a feature film. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Sure.
It's called The Portal, and it's an exploration of 5 beautiful stories of transformation, epic transformation, that have gone from that state of neediness and stress and abject misery, deep conditioning that created that actual situation in the person. And then by going through that portal in stillness, that portal on the other side of that, on the other side of the world of form, discovering, my goodness, this spaciousness and freedom and love and light, and then bringing that back through the form and seeing their lives change quite dramatically. And we set that up in amongst the global story of, if these 5 people can do it from extremely diverse backgrounds, then we all have hope and we all have that possibility. And what does that look like when we multiply that by 100,000, a million, a billion, or 7 billion people?
Because that's one of the goals of the Stillness Project, is to have, is it 1 billion people?
Yeah, 1 billion people.
That's extraordinary. And you spent 5 years in the making?
Yeah, so 5 years, we're getting there. It's a long process.
All the blood, sweat, guts and tears is going to go into this. So when is that going to be due for release?
We'll be releasing that early 2019.
Okay, so keep your eyes out for that. I'll put links to Tom's website at the bottom. I know he does retreats and weekend meditations and drop-in. Do you do Monday night talks as well?
Look, that's for my students that have done a weekend workshop. A lot of what we do is coaching. Coaching people who want to become transformational leaders, people who want to go out into the world and have started to tap in. You know, what we found was a lot of the meditation students who have been teaching over all these years were like me, finding this abundance, this overflow, but not really knowing what to do with it. And so we have a program, Zen Academy for Transformational Leadership, which is supporting those people that then want to serve in the world, but just help them get the forms and the structures and the mediums set up to allow them to get that voice out and share it with the world through whatever gifts that they've got that they want to share.
That is awesome. And I think you've got something for anyone in Sydney or Australia or Melbourne. He's got a Vedic meditation coming up. Is it a weekend or is it a one-day retreat?
We've got a one-day retreat in Melbourne on March the 11th. We've got weekend workshops every month, teaching Vedic meditation. And we've got a Bali retreat coming up in July, which is a 6-day retreat. Pretty intense.
That's the one I caught up with Tom at many years ago, and I reckon that place that you had it at is just amazing. So definitely check Tom out. Tom, if there's one thing that you want to leave my viewers with, like one take-home gem nugget about why we're here on this planet, what their role is if they step out of their own way, what could that be? What might that be?
We're very programmed and conditioned to look in that direction for our identity, for our fulfillment. And it starts from the day we're born. Where's the dummy? Where's the breast? Where's the milk bottle? It's all outside of us. And it's not through many years that we realise that it's not where we can find ultimately the source of fulfillment. It's when we look within. And it's about turning our direction back in, and that's where meditation comes in. It's one of those vehicles, it's one of the tools ultimately that supports you in that inward inquiry, to inquire with an I-N as opposed to enquire with an E-N. And I think that's really what life's about. It's to not get so distracted. It's beautiful out there and let's enjoy all of that. Likes on Instagram is fun, but let's not stop the process of looking within.
Yeah, that's a really great distinction there, that the inquiry and the enquiry, and that's what I find in life. These little tweaks and distinctions that can make massive differences and inroads. Tom, thank you so much for spending the afternoon with me.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you.
I reckon Tom will probably take me to a 20-minute meditation after this, so which is his hallmark trademark juju and Jedi magic. So I'll put all the links down at the bottom. Please get in touch with Tom if you want to check him out, check his website out. He's got online courses and classes, or if you're in Australia or if you're going to be in Bali, check him out as well. And other than that, you might catch him around in Bondi, maybe in one of these secret locations, or on the dance floor like I do. Thanks, Tom.
Pleasure. Thanks for joining us. Great to be here.
That's awesome.
Yeah, cool. Great to enjoy it.